Live now. We're live now. I'm already sweating up a storm. That's how you know it's going to be a good show. That's how you know I'm prepared. But now I can say thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. It's episode 2. My name is Drew Terrell. If you already know me, this is my father, Joe. We just did the whole introduction. So much good stuff, but we can do it again. If you didn't know, every show happens on the 15th and 30th, and on August 15th, the very next show, we have a very special guest coming on, which we're going to get into at a later time tonight. But first of all, I want to address something that happened on the last show. On the last show, my father asked me to do a comedy monologue. And hold on one second. Do we still have no audio? No, we're good. We're good. He asked me to do a comedy monologue, and I'll tell you what, I have prepared such a monologue tonight. Are you ready?
Let's hear it.
Are you ready? I mean, I feel like you're not ready. I mean...
No, the name of the show is Say What?
Say what? Well,
say
first
what?
of all...
Let's get on this.
First of all, I want no pity, Dad. I want no pity. I want honest reactions. If I say some joke with some cultural reference that you don't understand... Don't react to it. I want harsh criticism. It's a very difficult venture to do comedy in front of no responsive audience, let alone your own father as the only person that can respond to the jokes. But I'm here for the challenge.
Well,
and go ahead.
Here is the extra challenge. As you probably know, when I've come to see your live stand-up, older generation doesn't know sometimes what you're talking about. So after you go through this, and I do appreciate you doing it, after all, the idea of the show is to entertain people and be thought-provoking when we get into discussions. And I concur with you. We got a couple of sensational guests lined up for the next 2 shows. But you don't mind if I stop you right in the middle, break all your momentum and everything else, and say, would you explain to me who that was, or et cetera?
I know you're seriously joking right now. I know that he's joking right now, but I'm dead serious. I want you to do that. If there's ever anything that I say that you don't get, bring it up.
Okay.
A joke is always better thoroughly explained and gone over and over.
Well, you got to remember our viewers of all ages.
Of course. I know that our viewers age from the smallest of babies to people on their deathbed. So let's get into the news. It's a lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and I'm here to bring you all the important stuff that happened. You know, a lot of times on CNN and Fox News, they cover these stories that, you know, nobody really cares about. I'm here to cover the excellent news. And let's start with this story. Hershey Park in Pennsylvania. It's a big roller coaster park in Pennsylvania. Last week they had to close because of a flooding in their park. Let's see. I'll show you a picture of the flooding. No, I won't. I won't show you a picture, but... Anyway, there was lots of flooding at the river, and it was brown going through the river, and everybody thought like it was a new attraction for the Chocolate River, but it is not an attraction for the Chocolate River because chocolate rivers have been banned ever since the death of Augustus Gloop at Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. That's a smirk, ladies and gentlemen. That's a smirk. It's a good start.
That could be really funny, but I never saw Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
You've never seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
Never saw Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but I'm glad I didn't blow it because I was getting ready to tell you in a few minutes that, hey, just for those who don't know, yes, Hershey, Pennsylvania is the home of Hershey's chocolate.
Yeah.
And that's where it was started.
Yeah, and they have a huge theme park, and literally, I don't have it prepared, but literally there's a there's a river going through the park. They had to close it down because of the flooding, and Chocolate River. Willy Wonka, never seen it. A lot of unfortunate things happen to children in Willy Wonka.
Your first joke.
No. Like I said, I want honest
Get to the next one.
criticism. I want honest criticism. All right, we got that one out of the way. I like this one. Caesars Sportsbook.
Now you're talking.
Exactly. Now, Caesars Sportsbook recently announced that they're opening sportsbooks in New Jersey immediately. I think sometime this week they're opening sportsbooks in New Jersey, and in middle of August they're opening a sportsbook in Mississippi. and they'll be taking all sorts of bets at these sports books. As you know, recently legalized all over the country. You can bet money lines on baseball games. You can bet future bets on the Super Bowl, and you can also bet over/under on the amount of vacations my dad will be taking to Mississippi.
Why Mississippi?
Because they're opening a sports book in Mississippi.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I thought you said New Jersey.
They are opening a sports book in New Jersey, but on August 15th they're opening. I know you wouldn't step foot in New Jersey unless you were in Newark Airport going over to New York.
I was going to tell you, the governor of New York opened the first sports book betting in New Jersey, and he bet on Germany to win the World Cup, which was obviously a terrible pick.
Yeah.
And he bet $10 on New Jersey Devils to win the Stanley Cup next year, which on the surface of it doesn't look like much of a bet either.
No.
But at least they've gotten started.
And we'll be going into a hockey report sometime on this show because
God,
my
I
dad's
hope
got all
not.
the hockey knowledge.
Oh, I hope not.
All right, so I would say we're like 0.5 for 2 right now. We're like 0.5 for 2. I got a smirk out of the first joke. Didn't really work with the not seeing Willy Wonka, not really into the reference. Was not paying
Let's
attention.
move on here.
Was
Let's
not
get to
paying
something
attention
good.
to joke number 2. We'll go to that one in a second. Oh, this one. This one is a
This'll
classic.
kill?
This is going to kill you. I
Okay.
promise you.
All right.
A mother, speaking of sports, a mother in Seattle was charged recently for assaulting a girl on the basketball court. Her daughter got in a fight with this girl on the basketball court, and the mother stormed down. I don't know if she was protecting her daughter or what, but she became the second person this year to choke on a basketball court behind J.R. Smith.
That's okay.
That's okay. As you can see, LeBron, very upset with J.R. Smith.
That's okay.
And I wanted to ask
That's
you
a
really
good one.
quick. You're a basketball aficionado, I think. What is the biggest choke job in basketball history? And I'll give you mine after.
Well, let's define it, because you could say somebody who just flat out made a mistake because they weren't aware of what was going on. Is that choking, or is choking being so nervous, so afraid because it's the big stage, it's the big game that you play like a dog?
I would say it's the context of it has to be a big moment. Like J.R. Smith in game 1, they had the game, tied. He blew it, didn't call timeout, a mental mistake.
Yeah. For those that don't know, all he had to do was just put the ball right back in the basket, game 1.
Or they had a timeout. You could have called timeout, 3.5 seconds. Yep.
Well, he thought
Set up a play.
his team, Cleveland, was winning, so he dribbled all the way back out to the circle. Game ends with it tied. He thought they had already won. They didn't. In overtime, they get beat by Golden State, and Golden State goes on to defeat them in the entire championship.
Yeah.
So you want to know who I think
Yeah.
was? I felt really horrible for him, but in the NCAA basketball championship years ago, I'll think of his name in a minute, called timeout.
The Fab Five.
Fab Five.
Yeah.
In the championship game, and of course, calling timeout when you have no timeouts left is a technical foul.
Was it Chris Webber?
Chris Webber, I
Yeah,
believe.
Chris Webber,
It
yeah.
really felt bad for him because he just, he thought they had a timeout. He didn't know. He called timeout, technical foul. Other team makes the basket, gets the ball, wins the game, and the Fab Five, who was the most talented team on the floor that night, gets beat. So that'd be one of them that comes to mind right away.
I have one that I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Space Jam with Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes.
Where are you coming up with these movies? Are these real movies?
You're gonna look stupid. This is one of the most classic movies of all time. Michael Jordan made a movie
I
with
thought he was in the Peter Rabbit movie, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or something like that.
No.
I thought he was in that movie.
No.
No?
Basically, he made a movie with the Looney Tunes, and he was facing a team called the Monstars, and the Monstars were all these jacked up monsters, and they had to fight for the Looney Tunes. The Monstars had a 66-18 lead at halftime, and they blew it. To Michael Jordan, sure, the greatest of all time, but at one point, not only was it 66, but it was kind of one-sided, isn't it, to 18, which I think Monstars, you blew it. They had no range. They just went with dunks every time. They had no three-point game. They blew it. Got to see that movie. We're climbing up the ranks with these movies. You got to see. But that's Mom charged for choking, and the wonderful parent reacts well. This one, there's been some wildfires across California. I don't know if you've known that. There's wildfires all across.
I saw that story. Tragic story.
It is a tragic story, and not just California, but in Greece. I don't know if you knew. Yeah, in Greece, there's like wildfires all across. Firefighters are, like dumping water all over it, and they can't seem to, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Once again, proving that you should never pour water on a grease fire.
That's a stretch.
A stretch? That is a great wordplay joke. I defend that joke.
It's all right.
The delivery could have been better. I'll give you that. The delivery could have been better. But don't pour water on a grease fire. Ooh, I'm saving that one for later.
All right.
Saving that one for later.
Hopefully that's just getting started. Hopefully what you have in your hand there progressively is going to get better.
Oh, no, it is. It is. I saved all the winners for the later. I start slow. Rope them in, get them a little interested.
When we get towards the end, I'll be doubled over and laughing.
Yeah. You won't be able to talk for the rest of the show because
Okay.
You'll be so doubled over in laughter. Here's another story. I don't know if you've ever heard of Juul e-cigarettes. They're vaporizers.
I know what e-cigarettes are, yeah.
Yeah, so basically the Massachusetts Attorney General is targeting Juul, which is the main company that makes these, for targeting their advertisements for teenagers and, making them different flavors. Basically they're really popular among high schools and even middle schools. And I think this is just, so unbelievably wrong, because they shouldn't be targeting their advertisements towards teenagers. What they should be doing is targeting their advertisements towards babies. Now, babies already, they love pacifiers. Some babies struggle breastfeeding. What better way to get your baby ready for breastfeeding than with a vaporizer? And best thing is, sometimes you might lose your baby. Sometimes you might lose track. All you got to do is follow the vaporizer cloud, and sure enough, you found your baby.
All right, that's not bad.
All right, I wasn't expecting a good reaction from that one.
No, that's okay. You know why, don't you?
Why is that?
I didn't have to know about some movie that may or may not have actually been made. This was a straight up.
Space Jam, people. The guy doesn't know Space Jam. Anyway, in the UK, there's a bill where online trolling would prevent you from ever becoming a member of Parliament, which I'm not even going to get, I'm not even going to get.
What is online trolling?
Online trolling is when you, mess with somebody on the internet with basically just harassing them on the internet.
Gotcha.
So online trolling, something our fans would never, ever do. Online trolling, basically they're trying to introduce a bill that...
Let me just stop you real quick and you can get back to this bill that's being introduced. But if this doesn't pick up and doesn't get funnier, you're going to get harassed on the internet by our fans.
I'm looking at the chat. By the way, somebody said, who doesn't know about Space Jam? So they're already defending me.
Well,
get this microphone in front of your face so they can hear these dumb comments about not seeing Space Jam and Willy Wonka.
No, I know they made a Willy Wonka movie because, what's his name, the star, just died recently.
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder, the star, just died recently.
Yeah.
And
amazing comedian.
Yeah, he really was. And I know he was in it. I just never happened to have seen it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, back to this online trolling bill, because this is for real. It's like, I'm not gonna start getting in. Maybe we can talk about this after the whole monologue deal of the dangers of letting somebody decide what is and what isn't trolling is pretty dangerous. I don't really want to get into that. I want to get more into why politicians are going after online trolling, and I think it comes out of a place of jealousy. Because what have politicians been trying to do for years? And that's harass other people so they can get the political position with their garbage, commercials.
Well, you got that right.
All these garbage. They never talk about themselves. It's always, something. I happen to have made one recently. It would have been something along the lines of like, George Washington claims he was at the front of the boat crossing the Delaware River. But did you know that George Washington was actually in the second row? Do you really want to trust your first president of this brand new country with somebody in the second row? Hashtag not my president.
There you go. That's about right. That's how they would do it. They'd be criticizing him, saying he's no leader. He wouldn't even get up in the front of the boat.
He wouldn't even get in the front of the boat. What kind of leader doesn't even grab an oar?
Yeah.
What kind of leader doesn't even show? And he's always bragging like he was the one leading.
Never
the
would have
boat.
got reelected.
No?
No. They would have run commercials like that. They would have been all over him.
And that's what I said. Not my president. That guy, by the way, it's kind of hard to see because it's a little far away. If you check out that painting, that guy in the back is not a happy camper. I don't know if he's seasick or what, but he's not a happy camper. Maybe because it's cold in the Revolutionary War and they're fighting for their freedom might have something to do with it. But wasn't the happiest. All right, moving along. I know we're picking up. That one was good. Let me make sure I don't have any more fire for this one. I don't think I do. Oh, this is a good one. I think you're going to like this one. Colombian cartels have put a $7,000 bounty on the head of Sombra, the drug-sniffing dog. Sombra is a dog that works for the...
terrible.
I know, it's awful. Sombra is a dog that works for the Colombian government, and they put the bounty on it because it's so good at its job. It's caught like 2,000 kilos of cocaine in its lifetime, and it's a really famous dog. And hold on, I'm getting some breaking news. It turns out Sombra. Oh, don't have the picture, but Sombra has been checked into a rehab for cocaine addiction. Would have been better with the picture. I did a nice Photoshop
because
of a dog.
Because he's caught so many sniffing cocaine. That the deal? He sniffed so much cocaine. There it is.
There it is. There's the picture. I knew I had the picture somewhere.
He sniffed out so much cocaine.
He sniffed out so much cocaine.
He
became addicted to cocaine. That was kind of my thought process was, he's always sniffing 2,000 kilos. Poor Sombra.
Well, before you put that picture up, that was a pretty nice looking dog. I hope nobody collects the bounty.
No, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? That would be awful. But hey, at least that dog's like great at his job. That's a pretty cool dog.
No question.
At least, hey, thank God that picture worked too. Woo! Let's see. Got rid of that one. Ooh, I like this one a lot too. Let me just fix this. Going back to Massachusetts, a pawn shop in Massachusetts bought a violin for $50 off a guy, and just because it looked like a nice violin. Basically, they got an appraisal on it, and it turns out it's worth $250,000. This violin was made in 1759. And they interviewed the store owner about it, and he was kind of shocked, like, I can't believe it was worth this much. I kind of feel bad for the guy that sold it to me. Had I known it was worth $250,000, I would have offered him at least $75 to $100.
That sounds about right. That's okay.
Never been in a pawn shop, but myself. But I've watched enough Pawn Stars and everything else to know that they're not the most frugal, or I guess they are frugal.
Pretty good. Let me back you up and ask you a question about that story. How true is that story?
Everything, but obviously the interview with the owner. That's a very true story that the guy bought it. But here's the thing about that story is it was stolen, and they had to give it back. They caught the guy who sold it to him for $50, and I don't know where along the line it got stolen, but the violin was stolen. And I don't have it written down on the card, but it was, I forget, some famous guy. But yeah, 1759 that violin was made.
I'll be darned. I'll tell you just in a public service announcement here for all of our viewers or yourself or anybody else in case you happen to get excited about it. Years ago, a client of mine had an old violin that belonged to their father, and their father had passed away, and in going through his things, he was a musician for a living. They found a violin, and clearly inside the violin it said Stradivarius, had his first name and Stradivarius and etc. So naturally a Stradivarius violin is one of the most valuable things you can ever come up with.
Naturally. I mean, who doesn't know the Stradivarius name?
Exactly right. So anyway, we took it to New York to the, I forget whether it was Sotheby's, Christie's, one of them. And the guy said, no, the violin's worth very little money. And he explained in those days there were no laws against it. And because Stradivarius had already became very popular before he died, anybody that made a violin put his name in it to try and get more money when they sold it. No copyright laws or etc.
Like a fake Gucci purse or something. Like
sort of. Yeah, exactly. Only it wasn't against the law.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It wasn't against the law. They could just do it and write in there, say, hey.
Yeah, that's what the guy said, that you could put anything you wanted to inside the violin, and he was giving me some other things. So anyway,
do you know
we
how much
walked
it
out
would
realizing the violin, instead of being worth a couple million, was worth a couple $100.
Is that how much? Because I was going to ask if it was a Stradivarius from like whatever year it was from, how much would it have been worth?
Oh, I think even then, this was 25 years ago, I think it would have been worth a couple of million. If I remember, I saw something not so long ago. They did find one that was authentic, but it's like they know of almost every one that has survived because they knew how many he made to begin with. So they know, like, look, there's no more Stradivariuses out there. I don't know that part of it, but anyway, just a little public service. If you get a Stradivarius violin, don't get too excited till you check it out.
It seems like if you get a Stradivarius violin, get ready to get disappointed because it's probably a phony.
Exactly right. It's a knockoff.
Well, there you go. You come for the discussion about, interesting topics. You stay for the violin facts. This is my personal favorite story of the week because I love astronomy and I love space, science and everything else like that.
Well, I can tell by your Space Jam's enthusiasm. It must have had something to do with it.
Yeah, it does. It does. This is a good one, too. Get ready for it. Researchers have found evidence of a large body of water on Mars. As you know, your favorite entrepreneur, Elon Musk, is very interested in going to Mars, and it's a big deal. I think it was let's see, do I have it on here? I think it was a British satellite or something, basically found it's like a lake, basically. It's like an underwater lake that has so much salt in it, it doesn't freeze, because it's obviously Mars is far away from the sun, so it's like minus 90 degrees. So it doesn't freeze, and they found this lake on it, and basically it's a huge deal because all scientists have kind of go with the value, if there's water, there's life. And so now the only question is like, what kind of life, if there is life, is there in that lake? And it's a question that can be answered this Sunday on Sci-Fi in the original movie Martian Sharks. Martian Sharks, starring Brendan Fraser. Catch it on Sci-Fi this Sunday at 8 p.m.
I know you had to have made that movie up.
No. This is a real movie.
Martian Sharks.
Yeah. This is
a real movie.
This is a real movie that's showing on Sci-Fi this Sunday. It stars Brendan Fraser as one of the sharks. It's completely. They got him in a bodysuit and everything to be one of the sharks, and it's gonna be a big hit. Tagline: it's not the red planet, it's the dead planet.
Okay. All right.
You're not a fan of Shark Week this week?
No, I think I'm going to try and make definite plans on Sunday. I'll have to miss that show.
It's too bad. If there was, our show on that night, I would have canceled our show just so we could tune in, and I would have encouraged everybody else to go watch Martian Sharks on the Sci-Fi. And this one I just like. This is also a personal favorite. Not as favorite as Martian Sharks. That's my best joke of the night. I'm calling it right here.
Uh-oh. If that was your best of the night, it's going to be a long evening.
And this one I do want to get your opinion on. A Dutch company announced that they're gonna have lab grown meat in the next 3 years. 3 years from now, they announced that they're gonna have lab grown meat, artificially grown meat. Would you eat it? Would you try it if it passed all the?
I think I would.
No.
No.
It wouldn't be like a experimental, because I'm thinking like the fancy restaurants are going to hop on this really quick, and you're going to have to pay some exorbitant amount to go eat lab grown meat. It's not going to be like what everybody thinks. Everybody thinks, oh, it'll save the hunger problem. We'll be able to produce all this stuff. I think it's going to be like fancy food.
Lab grown meat.
Lab grown meat. Meat grown in a lab. It's an experimental thing. You've been to one of those cocktail bars where it's not bartenders or like mixologists and everything.
True.
You're going to have that. It's not going to be a chef back there. It'll be some sort of lab-grown meat. But anyways, this Dutch company hopes that not only can they start production in 3 years, but by 2025 they can surpass meth as the most common item cooked in a lab.
Okay.
And finally, there's a debate over what to call it. Actually, this is my favorite joke. I take it back. The shark joke was top tier A-level comedy. This is A+ comedy right
All
here.
right, let's hear it.
There's a debate over what to call this lab meat. People in the industry are calling it clean meat because you don't have to, obviously hurt an animal to make it. People in the farming sector are calling it synthetic meat, which kind of makes it sound a little bit like you wouldn't eat it, because I think the farmers are really liking it. While I'm simply calling it more yum for my tum-tum.
Well, maybe, but...
And that's the comedy monologue. Now, if you were...
Hey, look at these cards and see if you really have this written down.
If you were a judge in like the 1980s Winter Olympics getting ready to judge an ice skater, right?
All right, I'm with you.
You have to judge the comedy monologue that your own son just prepared, worked over, strived over, saw those Photoshops I worked so hard to make. Give it to me. I'm standing at the, the little podium with the, all the advertisements behind me, ready to hear my score.
This being only the second show you're doing, I might give you 5.5.
I'll take it.
Let me ask you, this is a separate question that I've debated a little bit with you, and a little bit of the show is the generational debate.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in a few minutes, let's talk about our guest next week, because that's going to be a great show. Not that this one isn't, and not that your monologue wasn't great.
Thank you.
But the difference in telling jokes where you tell a story and then there's a punchline at the end versus no.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very few do that anymore. Very few actually. What's the technical name of telling a joke about somebody recently versus saying, there was a man's car broke down and he went up to a farmhouse and they asked if he could spend the night and blah, blah, blah.
You're saying like a classic joke, one that you might get from like a joke book? Like guy walks down the beach and finds a genie bottle type joke.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that it has to do a lot with it being labeled, like when you hear one of those style of jokes, you automatically know, hey, that's that style of joke. And I think that a lot of people got burnt out on them with, like I said, all those joke books that have them, all the...
Well, here's where I was really getting. Obviously, when I see comedians and et cetera, and in some of the things you do, it's kind of always about current affairs or things like that everybody's writing jokes for, which is what you did. I always wonder who wrote that joke to begin with and who thought of it, even though maybe it's in a book and you've heard it told several times. But I always
like, who's the original guy that came up with...
the original guy that sat down and figured that joke out? Because some of them can become elaborate. And I thought, does anybody even do that anymore? Does anybody sit down?
this is going to be an interesting conversation, especially for the generational gap. Do you know? I don't think you do. Do you know what a meme is? M-E-M-E, a meme.
No, I know what a mime is.
No, not a mime. A meme.
Do not know what a meme is.
A meme is basically, to explain it as simply, is like a joke on the internet.
On the internet?
On the internet. The most classic.
Any joke?
Sort of. It's usually a visual joke. And the most classic example would be like do you know what a GIF is? It's a moving image. What
GIF? How are you spelling it? A GIF?
It's a type of file. Anyway.
Don't know that one either.
It's all right. We'll get there. Do you know what a meme is? Just shake your head. You do? Okay. A meme is basically like a picture that would be a picture of somebody reacting like something smells bad.
Okay.
And above it would say like that face when you walk into the gym. Meaning because everybody's sweating and stinking. So it's a picture of somebody smelling something bad.
Got it.
Which would be a fire meme, by the way. I'm just saying, somebody can go out and make that. But it goes to the discussion you always say is there's memes that are so popular on the internet, and it basically like one picture can become the next joke of everybody's got to come with a tagline for that picture.
Right.
And I always think, like you just thought, of who was the first person to come up with that meme. This picture I'll show you right here. This is a great example of a meme. People posted, after this happened, people posted this picture all over. LeBron going like this.
And then put a tagline to it.
And then put a tagline as a joke to it. So that would be a meme. And I always think, not with this one, because that's a pretty popular picture, basically, like, who is the first person to create those memes? Because they get so wildly popular.
One short question before we start talking about the next couple of shows.
Mm-hmm.
On the internet, just your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think, because I think everybody in their email, how people even get your email, I don't know, but they send you jokes all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think is the most made fun of? President Trump? Hillary Clinton? Who do you think? I mean, I get them on both sides.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be Trump.
Is there anybody else that would be in contention besides those two?
For like a couple weeks there, it was Mark Zuckerberg. When Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, I know you know from the business industry.
Know a little bit about that. Now we're talking about something I know about.
Mark Zuckerberg, when he was on trial for the privacy scandal, it was very easy to make fun of how robotic he looked and how pale he was. But as a whole, I don't think it even comes close between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But I think it's for this reason: it's that more millennials hate Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton, and more millennials spread jokes on the internet. So basically, I'm trying to think of who else would even come close. It goes in spurts. Like in the World Cup, everybody was making fun of Neymar, Brazil's best player, because he took a dive, flopping all over the field. So
did you happen to see? I thought of you because you had told me about how bad in the World Cup they were doing that, and they showed on ESPN or one of them last night a soccer game, and I think it was Seattle playing New York. And the two players ran into each other, and they both simultaneously fell down, trying to act like they'd been fouled.
Yeah. They both do one of these and fall over.
Yeah. I thought that's what Drew said. That
how do you solve that? You're the head of FIFA. You see people are flopping all over the place. It even happens in basketball. Basketball is a big one where a sport more about. Guys flopping all over the place. Is it just simply find the hell out of them?
Well, let's start right away by having a full disclosure here, which maybe will come up here somewhere in debate, that you know how much I am not a soccer fan, or how little I know.
Aim it this way.
or care about watching soccer. So I'm tempted to say, when you ask me what would I do about it, I'd ban the whole sport.
End the sport completely.
I'd ban the sport from existence.
It's only the world's #1 sport worldwide. FIFA only is like what on the list of industries around the world. How much money does FIFA make compared to everybody? I think it's like number 6.
I'm not saying it's not popular, and you want me to get in? You want me to explain?
Let's get into it, because I think this is a good one to get into, because you have a quite the opinion about soccer, and I think that people want to know. This Twitch that we're on right now is a global website. I'm sure, as soccer is the most global sport there is, there'll be lots of fans that'll be interested to hear what you say.
I'm going to get into it because it's a very valid point, and it is a correct point, but it does not mean that I object to soccer. I'd ban soccer. I was joking a minute ago when I said that.
Yeah.
Soccer is the world's #1 sport, etc. There's no question about all that. But it's just not my cup of tea. Some people like auto racing. Some people say, no, it doesn't do anything for me. Some people don't like basketball. Bowling on Saturday afternoons, when they had the Professional Bowlers Tour, used to be wildly popular with people to surprises. So the only thing that I want to say about soccer is why it doesn't appeal, I think, to me, and why in the United States it's taken so long to really catch on or become as popular as it has outside the United States. Now, a lot of new citizens coming from other countries have brought a lot of popularity for soccer. So they pack stadiums and etc. But, and don't start on me here when I say this, but it's the case. Sports is part.
By the way, that was a mighty big introduction to what you're about to drop. I can't even imagine what you're about to say. Mighty
I'm
big.
Just telling you the facts. Aesthetics is the branch of philosophy that deals with art, and of course, your sports and things like that becomes part of what you value as art and things as the branch of aesthetics. It reflects your philosophy, it reflects your society. I say, which is very true, the United States was founded by people who had a lot of freedom. They had to be rough and tough. You didn't survive, you didn't start and grow, you didn't found the West. You had to be a rough, tough type person that did all those and was capable of doing all those things. Thus, our sports in the United States reflect that. And by that I mean, think of football. Football is a sport where, look, I always laugh at...
Now, wait a second. Are you still talking about football, the real football, as in soccer, or...
I'm talking about American football.
Oh, okay.
A
I see
real
now.
sport.
I see now. Yeah. I thought you were talking about football, as they say.
No. Stop and think of it. In American football, because it reflected our culture, it reflected our society, the idea was get this ball here and get it all the way down there and cross this goal line with it. And in the meantime, the other team's going to try and stop you. They're going to tackle you, they're going to grab you, they're going to hit you, they're going to knock you out of the way, they're going to try and do all that, and at the same time, your guys are going to try and do that. You're going to be basically all out doing everything you can. However, just as the United States was founded with what's called liberty, and liberty is the restrictions we put on our own freedom, and liberty meaning you're not at liberty to yell fire in a crowded restaurant or something when it's not, just to get a laugh.
Which is, I mean, it is funny, though. It's quite the joke.
Well, liberty is the restrictions you put on freedom. And even in football, as rough and tough as it is, it reflected the founding of the United States, how rough and tough it was to do it, but we still interjected certain rules. You couldn't hit anybody from behind because you might hurt them. You can't grab them by the face mask. But other than that, anything goes. I would go on to say basketball that's become so wildly popular in the United States. One person, they've got to play defense, they got to play offense, they got to run from here, they got to run back, they got to rebound, they got to shoot, they got to defend, they got to be able to shoot free throws, they got to be able to do everything and run up and down and do it.
Well, they're supposed to. I mean, you have some people like Carmelo Anthony that's kind of a
don't get me started on
one-tool
Carmelo.
player.
Okay, now, Europe, just as an example, and other societies where they came from a very strict socialist background, where there was a king, there was someone who basically made all the rules and they had very little personal freedom, their sport reflects it. In soccer, you got to go up and try and kick the ball, but you can't touch it with your hands. Oh man, that's
it's
all
the
out.
skill
And
of balancing the ball on your
I'm
feet.
not saying that there's not skill to
the
it.
grace.
I'm saying it's a very restrictive sport because it reflects their society and it reflects the culture that they grew up in. And no, when I try and watch a soccer game and there's 11 people on the field or 13, how many's on the field
11.
and they're not doing 11 people on the field, one person over here is doing something, the other 10 and stand there and all watch them. Going, oh, look at that.
Time out, because we got a comment from the chat, and I like this comment. It's from somebody you know, Michelle, and this goes into what you just said about people are standing around. Michelle says, soccer players are 100% tougher than baseball players, and baseball is a sport where that's all they do is stand around.
I would a little bit disagree with that, but let's go back to this.
Deflection.
Wait just a minute. Let's go back to soccer, and let's go back to the fact that it's a very controlled sport. You can't kick the ball down there very far because if you cross a couple of lines, that's an infraction. It's offsides and any number of things like that. Now let's compare that to the American sport in our culture. It was football. And the object was, if you want to get the ball from here down to there, I tell you what we'll do. Pick it up. I'll run like blue blazes and run down there. As a matter of fact, I'm going down the end of the block and I'm getting my buddy Bruno and tell Bruno, hey, Bruno, come down here. I'll give you $50. You're a pro football player. Knock anybody on their ass that tries to keep me from running that ball down there. And as a matter of fact, I know another guy that's fast as blue blazes. I'll have him run all the way down the field as far as he can, and I'll throw the ball to him all the way down there and score a touchdown, and it's exciting and all that happens. In soccer, all that's against the rules.
Well, in football, what about when the wide receiver isn't on the line of scrimmage and he's a little bit backed up and he tries to run? And nope, can't do that. Illegal motion, illegal procedure.
A little bit of that, but stop and think of the very basics of it. How about basketball when the fast break? You tried to fast break in soccer, that's against the rules. Fast break, hey, I got the rebound, I'll throw it all the way to the other end of the court.
I feel like the term breakaway came from soccer. A breakaway goal. Somebody breaks away from the pack.
I'm just telling you why soccer doesn't personally appeal to me and why I think it's taken a while for soccer to really get on. In a nutshell, soccer is a controlled sport that reflects a monarchy or a socialist background that the country it was in.
I was going to ask you, is that why you think it's so popular around the world? Like you say, these reasons is why it's not popular in America. Why is it popular everywhere else?
I think because it reflects the culture. A lot of their culture was, and to a certain extent still is, you stay in your class structure. You don't try and improve, your know your place type thing. In the United States, we never had that. Everybody was trying to make money, get rich. Nobody cared if you were a mailman, a plumber, a milkman, and you raised your child, wanted them to become a doctor. You encouraged them to be the very best they could and advance society. Our sports reflect that. And baseball also has a lot of that in it because you have not a defensive man. You have 8 players that play offense and defense besides the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just go back and talk about baseball before it's been a little bit distorted by recent rule changes and recent things to try and make it
Player
appealing to
shifts and stuff
Okay.
like that, yeah.
Yeah. For most of baseball, if certain things happen, the pitcher'd throw right at your head and try and knock you down. A base runner going into second base would go with his spikes up, trying to hit the second baseman, and etc. It was a rough, tough, tumbling sport that made that, and it was appealing to people in the United States because that's the life they lived.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, I think this is an excellent point that somebody brought up in the chat about soccer being so popular. They said it's because anybody can play it, even kids living in refugee camps playing with balled up plastic trash for a ball.
I agree.
Yeah.
And my point is,
football, there's pads, there's a lot of extra cost, basically.
Soccer doesn't appeal to me because of that. Let's look at, in the United States, how quickly the heavyweight champion of the world in 1880 or etc., for the most part, one or two exceptions, but for the most part, the heavyweight champion of the world was always from the United States. Why?
That I don't know. We got the best corn. We got nice big long fields of corn everywhere. All these people in America are eating corn all the time, get the big strong muscles from corn.
In a nutshell, it was a rough, tough sport that fit our culture.
I mean, yeah.
Overseas, in other countries,
But you could say, well, I guess that's...
you had to behave yourself. There's certain things you couldn't do. You look at that sport as one that's also evidence of just what I'm saying, that soccer is not appealing to me. I don't mind anybody watching it. Great. It is a great sport for the little kids to play because you can play it anywhere. It's good exercise. They run up and down and they have fun and etc. But it's on America.
You want to see people get hurt, like you said. You want to see the
no.
fastball right
No.
into some guy's head,
No.
take a couple months off his career, a couple
No.
paychecks off, a couple
No.
of meals off his family's table. You want to see some guy
No,
slide into him, break his ankles.
I don't want to see that at all. I'm only telling you, auto racing, you know, and the advent of the automobile and the risk that those people were willing to take, the sports that became popular in the United States reflected our culture. Soccer doesn't reflect, until maybe recently, our culture.
Yeah. All right. I like it. We'll pick that discussion up on a later date, just because I think that there is something there about soccer, and I think you'll turn around. I think we need the World Cup in like 8 years. Whenever it comes to America, we'll get you to go to a World Cup game. Hey, we might even send you to Qatar in 4 years to go see a World Cup game. I know you'd love that.
Here's living proof of what I say is true. Croatia, with 4 million people, makes the World Cup final. The United States, with 240 million people, couldn't even qualify to get in the tournament.
I refuse to get into that because I do feel passionately about that. That's very ridiculous. Obviously, in America,
it's for
we
a
have
different time, and I want to move on here.
Yeah,
with
to
your
talk about the
permission,
guest.
talk about a
Yeah,
guest.
yeah.
But just stop and think of it that way. It doesn't fit our culture.
Real quick, because somebody wanted to know, when was the last time you watched a high-quality soccer game? Not like an MLS game, not like a high school game, like the best of the best.
Well, we weren't in the World Cup this time. The United States
But
wasn't.
last time
it
when
would
we
have
were-
been the previous
World Cup.
The
Okay.
United States played a game. I think they got beat, and it
Yeah.
was.
Well, we couldn't beat this time. We could not beat Trinidad and Tobago. So, I mean, they're always tough.
It just drives me nuts that.
I know that is ridiculous. We'll talk about that another time because I got a passionate opinion about that and what happened in the last World Cup. But let's go ahead.
Let's move on.
And talk
Start
about
telling people about the show on August 15th.
Okay, first of all, on August 15th, we're going to have our very first guest on the show, which I'm so excited about. Kind of the goal for this show, not only to make my dad just belly over in laughter with monologues and all of my hot takes and all of my intellectual debate that I bring to the show, but part of my goal in this show is to show off, just like my dad here, somebody who's common and ordinary and not that, not special in any way, but somebody who's extremely interesting and somebody who has a story. Everybody has a story to tell, and I kind of want to use this show as an avenue, I guess, if you will, to show off like people that you'd never, think you'd hear from and just their stories and life and everything else. Do you kind of have maybe a way you want to say it?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of entertainment out there for people that if you find what I say, a common, average, ordinary, extremely fascinating person, very entertaining. We need to do something here because the comedy wasn't getting the entertaining part.
Oh, the comedy was wonderful. I think the comedy it was the best way. We could have kept that going on for the whole hour, but go ahead.
I think the premise is this, that if you went outside the studio in downtown Chicago, you could find in the first 100 people just walking down the sidewalk, if you took the time, you'd find somebody that's incredibly fascinating, that has a really interesting life or story to tell, etc. In other words, most talk shows have celebrities
people with clout
on. Well, they have a celebrity on that made a movie. They have a politician on that, like most politicians, is just on to give a public relations statement and try and garner votes. You have people on that don't really have anything. They have a vested interest. That's why they're on there to begin with. On this show, I think you can get fascinating people. And on August 15th, I want everybody out there to tell your friends how to get the connection to watch the show.
Which, by the way, if you don't know already, is on twitch.tv/1530productions. If you're watching this live, you're here right now. It's easy. If you don't want to contribute in the chat, and by the way, tonight's chat is going quite well right now. I got somebody saying, "Good Drew, reading comments now." Somebody's a little anxious for me to read these comments out loud. But basically, if you don't want to contribute to the chat, which I highly encourage you do, just go to the twitch.tv/1530productions and it'll be there. But if you want to, create an account with twitch.tv. But tell everybody about the show August 15th, which I believe is a Friday?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody will tell us on your comment. But let's get back to this scenario. We're very lucky that Ron Goforth, who I've known most of my life, has agreed to be on the show on August 15th. And you're going to hear someone talk about, just among other things, assuming we'll ask him the appropriate questions, which I think we will, what it was like to grow up living right next to a steel mill in the heart of the steel mill days, what it was like as a young man to join the Marine Corps and go off to Vietnam and be just about in as many firefights and frontline action as you can get.
It's a Wednesday, by the way.
Okay, a Wednesday will work. Ron went on, if we can get him to tell it, a fascinating story of him pulling him off the line right in the middle of a firefight to fly him home because his father had passed. and what that was like to have gone from one extreme to the other in 24-hour
Instantly.
period.
Yeah.
Ron went on to be a nightclub owner.
Mm-hmm.
Ron also went on to be one of the largest cocaine dealers in all of Southern Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Ron went on to be a fugitive from justice, profiled on the show America's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
Ron spent a decent amount, about 12 and a half years, on a 25-year sentence in the penitentiary after he ran from trial one day from court. He walked out the door in the middle of the court proceeding and never
I
came
think
back.
for me, that's going to be my personally most interesting thing about this is, I mean, there's a fascinating aspect to everything from like growing up in the steel mill or growing up near the steel mill and obviously, the war stories or whatever. But I'm really interested to hear just a live take from somebody who's experienced it about like what life is like living on the run, what life is like. Is it a constant every single day paranoia in your head? Is it a constant?
I don't know, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
As I say, Ron has been someone I know. I'll wait for the show to tell how Ron and I first met and why I love Ron.
Yeah.
And would do anything for him. And
which I think is obviously an important thing to ask because you hear somebody, I mean, without even hearing what they had done, they were on America's Most Wanted. How, I wouldn't even talk to that person, whatever. So,
well, Ron made a few mistakes in his life.
As some of us
do. One of my
do.
questions, I'm going to throw it out right now, et cetera, is I want to ask Ron, how did you go from never having a police record, anything other than a traffic ticket? He never had an offense against him in his entire life. How'd you go from that to where he ended up being a major cocaine wholesaler distributor? How in the heck do you do that?
Now, do you want to bring this up because you're so knowledgeable in the area of traffic tickets?
I'm a little too knowledgeable at that.
A little bit of knowledge on, when it comes to everything else, you don't know much, but when it comes to traffic tickets, you could have said, Ron, I could have gotten you this.
I have the skills down to how to do it. I've gotten so many. There's the give me that ticket as the guy gives it to you. There's also the, you're not really giving me a ticket. I don't want it attitude. There's the any number of things. But I think in all seriousness, you're going to hear an incredibly fascinating story of someone whose life has been fascinating, and you're going to want to tell your friends to tune in how to do it. It'll be 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern on August 15th.
I think that's a perfect intro.
And then let's tell them about 2 weeks after that. You're going to try and do this show live from Las Vegas.
Live from Las Vegas, as many of you may know, that we absolutely love Las Vegas, and we're going to be doing this show live from somewhere in Las Vegas. Hopefully it'll be indoors, and hopefully we don't lose so much money that we have to do this from some back alley or some off-site in the Grand Canyon.
Hopefully you won't have to sell all the equipment.
I'll be doing the show from a selfie, basically filming the whole show.
But you do have a lead on interviewing a long time Las Vegas person.
Yeah.
We don't know whether you're going to get him or not, but certainly try that would be able to tell you and will be a great guest with an extremely fascinating life of what it was like.
And again, one of those people that have just such an interesting job that you'd never hear from on like a radio show. or a
Someone
TV
that
show.
goes back to the point that they can tell you what it was like when they were working that casino for the gangsters, when they ran the place. Can tell you all the things that happen, don't happen. I've always wondered because, as they say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
We
where
might
they
not.
draw the line.
I was gonna say we might not get a peep out of him. What if he really? Although we'll be in Vegas, so
I don't know. It'll be if we can get our guest, it'll be a fascinating show. Also, now let me ask this question for the viewers.
yeah.
It's 1530 Productions, the 15th of the month and the 30th of the month. But I
Correct.
think you mentioned to me earlier today in a text or something that you were thinking about switching it because the 31st is a Friday instead of the 30th to the 31st.
Yeah, basically, on some of these shows, we're going to try to always do it on the 15th and 30th. But on some shows, if it fits better, I think a Friday night show in Vegas will be perfect. So I'll be able to let everybody know on the next show if we're definitely doing it on the 31st or 30th. Somebody last time in the chat brought up that February only has 28 days, 29 on leap years, and obviously it'd be a little hard. We could try to sneak in a show in between the 28th and 1st at like midnight, but I don't think we'll do that. But basically, every show, if it's not on the 15th and 30th, we will let you know if it's either a day before or day off, etc.
Well, the 31st at the end of the month, basically. The 15th and 30th with the idea.
Yeah.
The 15th is pretty easy, but the 30th, it'll be a show at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to want to tell your friends. You're going to want to email the link to people as to how to be able to see this show and hear this interview we're going to have with Ron Goforth
You wanna?
on, it's a Wednesday night?
It's a Wednesday night, unless
Wednesday night, August 15th at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. I guarantee you, and I don't even know what Ron's going to say.
By the way, Ron is extremely excited. I just talked to him the other day, and he said he's very, very excited. Probably more excited than I am, and I'm excited.
Well,
So.
I'm sure just any conversation that I have with Ron ends up being excited. But Ron being willing to tell his whole story, you're going to want to see it. You're going to want to hear it, I guarantee you.
And we got a comment from the chat that we need more Young Gun guests as well, and I will be doing that as well. We're going to have these first couple of interesting guests, but we will have plenty of young people guests. I really want to get somebody who's like in like a teenager almost, because it'll kind of to represent like the three generations. I'm 27 years old, which isn't the oldest. I consider myself a young man. But we'll be getting lots of young guests because I need somebody to teach my dad and let him know that Space Jam is a very popular movie and one of the great classics, basically. So we'll be getting plenty of interesting guests over the time.
Now, before you move on to something else, I want you to apologize to all the viewers for not telling them the truth.
And what the truth being?
You said you're 27. I'm only 47, so you couldn't possibly be 27. You should have told them the truth, that you're only 16. You're just doing this show as an experiment for your civics class in school.
I think we're getting to that point in the show when the drugs have finally started kicking in my father, if he thinks he's 47 years
but
old.
Whoever it was in the chat room brings up a good point, and you and I have talked about it, Drew, that yes, you can find any number of young people, and don't get discouraged because there isn't. There are plenty of young people that you can find that already fit the category of common, average, ordinary, incredibly fascinating person, even because of their age.
Yeah.
But the key to the show will be searching these people out and finding them, which brings up this point. If you know of someone out there of any age that you think fits that category, they're common, average, ordinary people, tell them, Drew, how they can contact you so we can talk to them.
I will
get 'em on
type
the
in.
show.
I will type it in right now, but you can email at 1530productionsllc@gmail.com. Again, it's 1530 30productionsllc@gmail.com. Send us in any requests. You can message me through Twitch, through on this channel. I'll respond to you as quick as you can. And if you have anybody at all that you think, hey, I have an interesting story, as long as it's not like Jerry Springer couples, I think that we'll respond, and I'll hear you out and see if you're ready for the show. A lot of people are calling for Onion the Cat to be on as a guest sometime, but Onion the Cat only has stories about eating food out of his food bowl, so maybe way down the line if he gets a little bit more interesting.
Well, he has a little bit more in that. When I came earlier tonight, he was telling me about his first 7 lives and what those were all about.
Yeah.
It was mildly interesting.
Yeah.
Nothing too great. But in seriousness, the key is finding the people that really are fascinating people. And if you know of anybody that you think fits that category, 1530 now is numeric 1530.
Ready? Are you ready for this? 1530 productionsllc@gmail.com.
No dots in there or forward slashes.
No forward slashes, no dots,
spacing.
no spacing.
Got it.
I know that when you type in an email, you might type in 5 spaces in the middle of the email just to try to, find something. But by the way, that cat joke, I'm going to save that for my next monologue next time to bring in the more good jokes, good material. But anyways, we're running out of time here for the show. I got one quick question I want to end with. Is there anything else that you want to discuss?
No, I don't think so. In my world, for those that care.
Oh yeah. Let's give a financial news update.
It's not a financial news update, but it's going to be interesting for everybody to see what's going to happen with the potential trade war. Now, somebody might already be giving it one of these and going, oh my God, how boring is this, etc. But it has the potential to affect every man, woman, and child in the United States.
I think this was the plot of episode 1 of Star Wars, was trade wars and trade tariffs.
I saw that show.
You saw episode... No. You saw episode 4, which was the original Star Wars, is what you're talking about, right?
I saw the original TV show, and I saw a couple of the movies. They were good movies. Star Wars movies. In
the year 1999, George Lucas came out with the prequels, or the first prequel, which is called Episode 1. Basically meaning they were... In storyline-wise, it was awfully panned because the whole movie was about trade wars and trade tariffs, and people were saying, hey...
Was it really?
I came to see a Star Wars movie, not some government building.
Show.
It's a bad... You're going to see Star Wars Episode 1 before Space Jam, a good quality movie?
I just never heard of Space Jam. What was the show and who was in Who Shot Roger Rabbit? Somebody looked that up and I
believe the woman's name was Jessica Rabbit. The main star of.
I thought Michael Jordan was in Who Shot Roger Rabbit or Who Killed Roger Rabbit. Somebody in your chat room will tell us here in just a second. Somebody
might know a little bit about this. Real quick, somebody asked. You can get back into trade wars, but real quick, what about? You had an opinion. We brought up Mark Zuckerberg earlier, and you said I definitely know about him. Somebody just asked about Facebook stock and what your opinions on Facebook stock are.
Okay, here's another fascinating thing that's going on right now. The world, not just the United States, but the world has fallen in love with certain stocks in the United States. Facebook being one of them, Amazon being another, Tesla being one of them.
Netflix.
These stocks, in an acronym, are called the FANG stocks. And they've run them to prices up in price to price levels that make no sense. My opinion, that all of them have a lot more to fall, particularly in Amazon. A Tesla has a long way to fall. And we can get into, on one of the shows, how much time do we have right now?
We got,
what time is it?
It's 8:13.
So we've been on about an hour and 15 minutes. Well, we don't have a lot of time. Maybe on one of the shows can discuss and have the debate about, are Will autonomous driving cars be popular with people or not?
We definitely don't have enough time because I've heard your opinion on this, but we'll get into a separate time.
Will electric vehicles ever catch on and be extremely popular or not? But anyway, for the person that asked about Facebook, a lot lower to go in price, as does, in my opinion, the balance of those stocks. They were run up to levels that make no sense. Netflix is a company that generates no cash. By management's own admission, won't generate any cash until the year 2022. You know, what are they doing there? Their cost of their programming's going up faster than they can sign up people to pay them per month.
Yeah.
But we won't get into all that right now. But basically, I think Facebook has a lot lower to go in price.
All right. I think this is a good stopping point. We'll definitely bring up the autonomous cars at some later show. Probably not next show. And again, August 15th, amazing guest, Ron Goforth, with plenty of stories. Make sure you tune in and tell everybody.
Please do your friends, relatives, and people a favor. You give them the connection as to how to see this show, and remind them at 7 o'clock next August 15th, a Wednesday, they are going to be fascinated by an incredibly fascinating guest.
I completely agree. And only one other question I want to ask you, because not only did you deflect earlier when we brought up soccer not being as tough as baseball, and you managed to swiftly delve your way through that one and, you know, deflect, what a politician he could have been. Last week, I asked you...
What are you talking about?
We brought up soccer being tougher than baseball players, and you were going, and you sort of deflected.
Say that.
No, I brought it up as somebody. Regardless, last week...
Wait a minute. In soccer, if you even brush each other, some guy comes running with multicolored cardboard and waving it and carrying on. All you got to do is look at a guy and breathe wrong, and they come out and penalize you for that.
In baseball,
you can't even compare that to baseball.
In baseball, I swear to God, there was a story about David Price this year being told he can't play Fortnite anymore, the popular video game on Twitch, because it might hurt his little hands, and his little hands for pitching might get hurt.
That's got something to do with the trainer, but I'm talking about the game itself and somebody trying to compare it to soccer. There's no comparison.
He might hurt his little baby
No
hands. His little fingers might get hurt. He can't pitch the ball anymore because he plays too much video games.
You have to be tougher to play baseball than you do soccer.
Anyway, last week you dodged me on is pizza pasta. This week I got another hot debate for you. I don't think I've ever heard this one, but it's something me and my friends used to always argue, and this is the most important question of the night. What color is orange juice? Is it orange or yellow?
I'm going to say yellow.
I would agree with that. I've always argued that it's yellow. It's orange juice just by name of what the juice is and not the color of the juice. Do you have any opinion back there on what color is orange juice?
Yellow.
Seems like we're a yellow crowd.
How did you guys ever get into a debate about this? I would think everybody'd say yellow.
Well, you know, when we were at school,
the orange itself is orange in color, but the inside's yellow.
Is there anybody in the chat that thinks it is orange that wants to argue this really quickly right before we end the show? Because
by the way, I had at least 30 to 40 different viewers last week tell me I was correct. That pizza's a form of pasta.
That's 100% not true. It's just not true. Pizza is a completely individual item than pasta. I just told somebody yesterday.
Family.
I just told somebody yesterday, and they looked at me dumbfounded, like that's even a question. Like, what? Of course it's not pasta.
Look at the menu in an Italian restaurant, and it says, "Here's all our pastas." And then they say, "Here's all our pizzas" as a subcategory, and
it's not. No. It
pasta.
is two completely different categories. There's this category and that category of pasta, pizza. It would just continue on. If pizza was pasta, it'd say pastas. You got lasagna, you got your tortellini,
Well,
you got
I
your
won't
pesto, you got your cheese
interfere
pizza.
with the show on the 15th because it'll be an incredibly fascinating show.
Mm-hmm.
But in the future show, I'll bring in some menus to prove it to you.
Well, we can discuss that. I've already gotten pizza is not pasta. Different categories for sure. And somebody wants to know, is a chicken parmesan sandwich pasta?
I would say not. A chicken sandwich, regardless of what you top it with,
So-
is not pasta.
So if it's bread and sauce and cheese, it's pizza. But if you put another top of bread on top of it, it no longer is pizza, or it's no longer pasta.
No, and I'm not going to get into another 45 minutes of the show here, but let's just get into saying this. If you're making lasagna and you've got that noodle that you're putting the meat and the cheeses in and everything else, what's the difference between that and what the pizza's sitting on?
Pizza is specific. I don't know how to make pizza, so I might be a little wrong here. But pizza is pizza
You
dough
specialize
cooked.
on eating pizza, true?
I definitely specialize
Okay.
in that. But
Well, let's do this. Let's end this show.
let's end it.
and go
We'll
eat some
we'll
pizza.
exactly. We'll
But- Ladies and gentlemen, please tell your friends, tell your co-workers, tell people that you are going to hear an interview on August 15th from one of the most fascinating people you'll ever come across.
I completely agree. And first of all, thank you so much for tuning in. It really does mean a lot to anybody that tunes in. I'm just starting this. It's only episode 2. And I like what we have going on. I think this was already, not that the last episode wasn't any, good or anything, but I thought tonight we did pretty well. I brought just absolute fire with the jokes I had tonight. Lots of winners in there. Lots of winners. What I got a 5.5 from the judges?
Out of 10,
Out of 10. Hey, 5, that's above average. So that's a winner. Still an F, but we'll get it up to a D- next show. And again, tune in next week, August 15th. Not next week, August 15th, next show. Really appreciate it, you guys. And we will see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in.
good night.